Hi, you're watching Current Issues. My name is Vineet Malhotra. The GST Council meeting ended without any consensus on the dual control of assessors. This means that the GST is not likely to be rolled out from the 1st of April 2017 as was envisaged. While Finance Minister Arun Jaitley did not categorically say that 1st April target date would be missed, Kerala Finance Minister Thomas Isaac attributed the possible delay in the rollout of GST towards demonetization. What does a delay of GST mean to the investors? What does it mean for the economy? Is it only dual control, or are there many issues that are blocking GST bill? We'll get into this debate with our guest in the studio. Sharad Kohli, business analyst and economist, is joining us. Sharad, thank you so much for being here. Mr. Akash Jindal, who's also an economist, is with me in the studio. Sir, thank you for being here. Sharad, let's begin with you.
Everybody.
Sharad, let us begin with you. The GST probably could be delayed. What do you see this as? Is this probably a fallout, an offshoot, if I can call it so, of demonetization?
Yes, definitely, Vineet. The council was going on quite congenially, shall I say, so far, and the only place where it was stuck was the dual control. Well, the dual control was relating to, in case our viewers don't know.
Well, yeah, exactly. Why don't you explain to our viewers, as to what dual control means, and is this big enough for the government to actually stop and hinder the progress of GST?
See, what the centre is saying is that all the assessees who are 1.5 crores and less in terms of turnover, the service tax would be assessed by them, they will be under their control. Whereas the states say that we want control of both goods and services for 1.5 crores under them. So we call this as a horizontal control, and what the state says, what the centre says rather, is that we can give you a vertical control as well. Vertical control is where, suppose assessees from particular alphabet to a particular alphabet are under the centre, and the rest go to state. So dual control is where we are talking of horizontal as well as vertical control.
Okay.
So that is where the stalemate was, but then, as you said, the overshadow has been of demonetization, where some of the states are now feeling that their revenues may be constrained because of demonetization. So they say they're going to have a double whammy, one of demonetization and then the GST. Having said that, the state has already assured of a compensation. So I really don't see why some of the states should be worried about the loss of revenue.
Okay, Mr. Akash Jindal, a very hard fought political consensus was achieved by Mr. Arun Jaitley and the BJP. Now that seems to be on shaky grounds. Is it so?
I wouldn't say it's on shaky grounds, but yes, I mean, I know where you're coming from. September 2017 is the deadline, but I think the way they are going, prior to the deadline, it would happen. But what is a bit heartbreaking would be, I think, a harsher term, if you could suggest me a milder word than that, but which is something which is not too comforting, is that perhaps the winter session may not be able to be utilized for that. Perhaps the thing may get postponed to the budget session. Budget session, of course, this would be perhaps last week of January, because now the meeting has been postponed to 22nd. And if it does happen, if it goes beyond 1st April, as of now it's just a possibility. We haven't come to a conclusion as yet that it would be delayed beyond 1st April, but the possibility of a delay is much higher now. So then I think the way the world looks at us, that wouldn't be the same. Because see, I mean, post GST, I've been doing shows with the Americans, Europeans. They look towards us in a different manner for foreign investment, and demonetization and GST together clubbed, they could have been much more than a game changer. So I'm an unhappy person when this thought comes to my mind that perhaps 1st April would be missed.
Okay. Mr. Gopal Krishnan Agarwal, National Spokesperson for the Bharatiya Janata Party, is also joining us now. Mr. Agarwal, thank you for speaking to us, sir. The GST rollout could be delayed and this probably would be an uncomfortable situation for the government, already reeling under the flack and pressure of demonetization by the opposition. Not a day of productivity in the House, and the winter session is probably just going to get languished away, sir. What do you have to say?
This is for the opposition to explain. They are on the economic issues, are not where there is on GST where there was a consensus, and they are not allowing the parliament session to function. in addition to GST, there were two important bill on corruption, that Amendment to Prevention of Corruption Act and then Whistleblower Protection Act. These three bills were very important and they have not allowed a single session to be held. So this is the situation at which they are working and harming the economy left, right and center. That's, they have to explain to the people of the country that what is their agenda. So with saying this, but we are hopeful that GST will have to be passed. It's a constitutional amendment and by 16 September it has to be implemented in the country. So with this finance minister has said that we have done lot of progress, and I came to know that out of 27 chapters there has been consensus and discussions with regard to almost 20 chapters. So clause wise clause discussion is taking place, and therefore the government is very confident that by next session we will be able to pass the GST bill, which has already seen a consensus where a long discussion have already taken place among the states, central, everywhere. So as far as GST is concerned, our government is hopeful that we will definitely meet the deadline. This is a long bill, it's a complicated bill, each clause needs to be discussed, but now very little contentious issues have been left which are unresolved. Only one major issue that needs discussion and consensus is with regard to the jurisdiction of the state versus center on the implementation of GST. So I think, as the finance minister has clearly spoken, that by the next meeting on 22nd December, all issues will be resolved, and in the next session, in a budget session, we will be able to pass GST. There is nothing at present to show that
okay,
Mr.
Gopal Krishna Agrawal, Mr. Akash Jindal wants to ask you a question, sir. Mr.
Gopal
Jindal,
bhai, this is your good friend Akash Jindal. Gopal bhai, I used to play a lot of cricket in my college days.
Yes.
And our coach used to tell us, buddy, boy, this is all about timing. So that is something which is very important for anybody who watches cricket these days and plays cricket. So I think you have not spoken about the timing factor. Now Gopal bhai, I have always praised the GST, the concept, and the world was informed that by 1st April the GST would be in. Now, as of now, the chances are that by 1st April we wouldn't have the GST. Now government has taken a tough stand on demonetization. I have been praising your government, the way they have gone on demonetization, the way they are out to curb black money, out to curb corruption. But when you are talking here about GST delay, you would also know that delay is there. So I thought the onus should be on the government to talk to the opposition, to convince them, to persuade them. Rather than doing that, my dear friend, what disturbs me is you are just putting the entire blame on the opposition. Would it be right when you are in the driver's seat? You should have talked it out. Today was the day, today it could have been talked out, or some other day prior to that. The onus was on you to have build consensus with them and have it passed, and to communicate the world that yes, by 1st April we have implemented it, and rather you are transferring the blame to opposition. Do you think it's right?
No, I am telling that before the bill is passed in the parliament, I am telling you the fact. I appreciate your support for us on GST and the demonetization. We expect every citizen of the country to support us on these two important issues. They are very important for curbing corruption and bringing transparency in the whole economic sphere, ecosystem. And before GST also, that ecosystem of digital banking system has to be put in place. So there are several issues which require a infrastructure development with regard to implementation of GST. The government is moving ahead in that line. We expect that it will be implemented by 1st April 17, but even if it is delayed, but it has to be implemented by September 16, 2017.
Should I take it as a commitment?
But what I am telling you is that the government, what I am telling you is there are 27 chapters which required every clause to be discussed in the GST Council, and the government has successfully completed discussion and consensus building on 20 chapters. So, before the bill is passed, these consensus with regard to these 27 chapters has to be implemented, and as we have a federal structure, we have to bring the consensus of the states on every clause of the GST bill. So, we are moving there. Along with that, we have to have a consensus on the jurisdiction or administrative jurisdiction on the implementation of GST. So, what I am telling you is, merely passing of the GST bill is not one issue. The government has to work on several fronts. Government is working on the implementation of digital banking. Government is working,
the government
on,
is working on several fronts. So, Sharad Kohli, the rollout lacks the necessary preparedness. So, it probably is a blessing in disguise that it is delayed.
Yes, because as I said,
blessing in disguise, we are working on all fronts simultaneously.
Yes, Mr. Agarwal,
So, 1 or 2 months.
I'm adding to what you're saying. See, first of all, the delay. Here is the calendar of delay. Although Mr. Jaitley has said that in the budget session we will try and fast forward, because the time from the budget session to 1st April is going to be barely 30 days. So he's saying we'll try and fast forward by preparing about the bill and its passage in advance. Secondly, the maximum delay could be 90 days, which means we are looking at 1st July as the implementation date. Now, coming down to the blessing in disguise, Vineet, what you said, it can be a blessing in disguise, because the country would have just about settled down from the after effects of demonetization. See, we all cannot deny, whereas I am also a supporter of demonetization, but we cannot run away from the fact that it is definitely going to put a pressure on the GDP to a certain extent. So by about the end of the quarter or end of I would say June, things would have settled down. So, and let's also not forget, Mr. Agarwal, that once GST is in place, it is going to have a spiral effect on inflation for a temporary period. I would say for a period of about a year or so. So, demonetization combined with GST, I think it could be too much for the economy to take. So, in that manner, Vineet, as you rightly said, this could be a blessing in disguise. A delayed GST could be good for the country for a change.
Okay, Mohammad Khan, spokesperson for the Congress party, would have joined us, but there is some technical delay, but we'll nevertheless have him on a phone line. Mohammad Khan, thank you for joining us. If you can hear me, Mohammad, is the industry ready for an early GST rollout, or do you think this delay is probably going to benefit the economy and small traders and the farmers because of demonetization?
Well, Mr. Vineet, our position on demonetization is very clear. In fact, in the backdrop of demonetization, I want to make 2 points. The first is, the grand compromise behind the GST was achieved when everybody agreed on certain basic principles, and that understanding has been eroded by the government's handling of the demonetization process. In fact, Mr. Amit Mitra, the Finance Minister of Bengal, recently made a statement saying that in these changed circumstances, it might be difficult for us to implement GST as originally envisaged. There is therefore a deficit between the states and the centre, right? And that is directly a result of the government's bad choices and its erosion of the RBI policy. This is an abstract point, of course, but it is one that is important to make. As somebody before me was saying, this will lead to an inflation spiral. The two will indeed compound financial problems for the people at large, and therefore there is a benefit for GST to be delayed. But again, this shows the government in a very, very poor light. The second point I quickly want to make is I want to contradict Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal when he said that Parliament is not being allowed to function. So first of all, both the GST bills are financial bills. You only need to take them to the Lok Sabha and not to the Rajya Sabha. And if indeed you're not able to get the Lok Sabha to function, then how do you get the tax law, a second financial amendment, passed in this very session? Mr. Arun Jaitley presented it and it was passed. That shows you that you're being selective. You're being deliberately selective about the bills you present, and you're being deliberately selected because you know that if you implement GST in today's changed economic circumstances, the people of India and the state will turn against you.
Okay, Mr. Jindal, the government has to obviously make arrangements for the cash crunch that the economy is going through before it can actually ready a juggernaut like GST. Come September, according to the constitutional amendment, it will expire as is. Does this put the government in a spot of bother? Does this desperation call for another desperate measure by the government?
See, firstly, I think we need what we have done as a country is, and I have been speaking it at a lot of media platforms, domestic as well as global, we have clubbed two things together, demonetization and the deficit of currency. See, I think we need to see these two things separately. Demonetization is a, I would say, game changer. It's a wonderful concept. People say it didn't work in that country, this country. This is a customized solution for India. I can go on and on for that. But since today the topic is not demonetization, what has happened is the government has not been able to implement it properly. Implement in the sense that cash deficit is there. So what is happening is, now certain media people also, with due regards, are confused. They are neutralizing the benefit of demonetization in discussions with cash crunch. Now these two things are separate. Now if the government, I mean assumingly, though it doesn't seem to be possible, within a week or 10 days have lots of currency of 100 and 500 notes, the skeptics of demonetization, what would they say? The only criticism of demonetization is that, see, people are standing in queues outside banks, people are standing outside ATMs, or people are going to withdraw 24,000, they are getting 6,000. So the issue is lack of 100 and 500 rupees note. As it is, demonetization, nobody is finding any problems in that, except for the fact that you have lesser currency. So I think demonetization is a wonderful exercise. I don't have any connection with any political party, but I think coming 20 years, 30 years, people would remember this wonderful act if the government is able to manage it well by printing lot of currency, managing logistics and circulating that currency. Now if you talk about GST, I think both things can be pursued and it should be pursued together. I have been doing lots of conferences with international investors. I would tell you, let both things come together if they can. It would have a wonderful impact on international investors and international money. And let's accept the fact we are now staying in a global community, which was not 25 years ago, which was not at all 50 years ago. Things are different. If we can have a strong image building exercise in front of the global community, we'll have lots of FDI, we'll have lots of FII. We are expecting America to raise rates of interest. So in these days, if we can have a strong global image, look, they have implemented both the reforms.
Right.
Nothing could be better. Already the negativities, the potential negativities of GSTs have already been discussed. Already the potential negativities of cash crunch are already there. So I think now what is left would be positivity. So still, if the BJP can manage it, and again I would say the onus is on them to sit with the opposition and persuade. It would be a wonderful thing in case both things can be implemented.
Absolutely.
From, I mean, this is already implemented, in case that also can be implemented from 1st April.
Okay, let's go across to Mr. Uttam Prakash Agarwal, who's the founder of UPACA. Mr. Agarwal, thank you for joining us. The GST could be delayed, sir, and do you think this is probably a fallout of the demonetization process and how the political climate is actually changing in the country? You know, we have elections coming up in a few states, and the cash crunch scenario is probably not helping the consensus the government had achieved a few months earlier on GST. Your take, sir?
No. First of all, you know that in country there are a lot of reforms are taking place, and one of the main agenda for the current government to roll out the GST from 1st April 2017. The last 2 days back there was a meeting for 2 days, and one day Arun Jaitley ji has said that because of the Eid holiday the meeting could not continue. But what I want to say that here, in spite of the what Jaitley ji said that and what the government is desiring for implementations of GST from 1st April, I have also doubt like others, because we have left only 2 days in completing the winter session, and still the Central Goods and Service Tax Act, Integrated Goods and Service Tax Act and Compensation Act, that has to be passed first in this particular winter session. And now completing the winter session, we have only the budget session. So I think, and even these three Central Goods and Service Tax, Integrated Goods and Service Tax, all Compensation Act, if at all something is passed in the winter session 2 days, what Jaitley is trying, but after that also that State Goods and Service Tax Act has to be passed in all the state as well as the 2 union territory. So I also go with the people like 3 other chief ministers, Tamil Nadu and all Jammu Kashmir. There are other issues also for, but I also have a doubt that And
Okay.
I don't think that in the hurriedly manner we should go ahead with the implementation of GST.
Okay, we should not go ahead with the implementation of GST according to
there
Mr.
are
Agarwal.
number
And
of
let me
issues.
go across to
Right,
Mohammad
it
Khan.
should not
Mohammad
happen
Khan,
the
you know, the hardening of resistance by, you know, states like Kerala on revenue sharing, do you think this is probably an adverse impact of demonetization? Okay, probably because of some technical glitch, we are not able to connect to Mohammad Khan, but I'll bounce off the same question to Sharad Kohli. Sharad, though you're not a politician, but still, you know, the revenue sharing business is something that you understand more than anybody, on the panel. And of course, Mr. Jindal is also a part of that group. Will you explain to us that probably these states have hardened their stand because they are probably not very, very happy with the way demonetization has impacted their lives?
Yes, you know, because of the fall in the expected fall in the GDP in the next 2 quarters. So there is obviously going to be fall in the revenue collection of the states. So the states are worried that the estimates on behalf of which they were giving their consent earlier is probably not going to happen now, which means the overall tax collection of the state is going to go down. Although, having said that, I would like to reiterate that the center has promised compensation of the loss of revenue. But they remember we need to see it on pro rata terms. It's been promised compensation on loss of revenue. But if there is an overall downfall in the turnover of revenue, if I use a business term, then obviously they are a bit scared. Now demonetization affects the revenue collection. On top of that, GST comes. GST is compensated. The shortfall in revenue collection is compensated. What about the overall collection? So definitely it's a cause of concern for the states, which is why states like Delhi, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, they have expressed the concern. West Bengal has been very, very vociferous in saying that with demonetization, we cannot go ahead with GST as of now. You'll be surprised. I mean, West Bengal was very, very clear on that. So that has been a new dissent which has emerged in the whole GST council. Let's not forget that it's a council. It's a constitutionally formed council which is doing. So if we look at an opposition versus the ruling bench perspective, I think we should move away from that and look at it from a council perspective. We are looking at a federal system of governance. So we need to see how the states are looking. But I think the states cannot backtrack now. It's a constitutional compulsion. As I said, before 16 September, the states will have no tax to collect if GST is not passed. So there isn't much choice, Vineet, over there. We can maximum think of a delay of 3 months, not more than that, definitely. There's no choice. I mean, what are they going to do after 15 September? There's going to be no tax collection in any of the states because they are not authorized to collect by constitution for that matter. So therefore, we are just looking at a minor delay. I think this delay is going to be a blessing in disguise.
Okay.
Although the government may not be very happy
Mr.
with it.
Akash Jindal, do you think this delay was probably in the cards since the day demonetization was announced? Is it something that business analysts and economists and financial gurus like you predicted?
I would say.
Did you have it in the back of your mind that this could be impacted?
No.
Maybe there is an outside chance.
It's a very interesting and a offbeat and a welcome question. I love offbeat questions. So actually, what happened is the day demonetization happened, November of 8th, things were different. See, I mean, 10th November, 12th November, I was talking to various people. My organization, akashjindal.in. I was doing many TV shows, many caller shows. People in the country had a different mood. People were very enthusiastic. People were very happy that something against black money, corruption is happening, or something which had not happened for 70 years is happening. So it was a euphoric moment also. People were supporting the government. So now what happens was, as the journey passed by, 15th November, 20th November, 25th November, 30th November, what happened was people started feeling the cash crunch. That cash crunch started biting people. It started hurting people. I'll tell you what I also went through. I have always been championing demonetization. I have always been saying it's a great exercise. But in the first week of December, I'll tell you a first-hand experience. I also had problems in my employees withdrawing the salary from their accounts. So why I am taking my example is, and why I am relating to all this is, that come 1st December, there was some irritation, there was some frustration in the minds of the people. Not because of demonetization, because of cash crisis, because of 100 and 500 notes not being there. So same thing was there with certain states. So I think what happened was, I would say with 27 by 27th, 28th November or 1st of December, things started going in a different direction. So if you ask me that very frankly, that could I predict it on 8th of November or 10th of November? No. The answer was that no, nobody could predict it. But as things moved by, I mean, things started becoming interesting, difficult, and a bit strange. So I think come first week of December, things were in a different mood, different mode. Some people were in a different mood. So I think this is the outcome of some, the sentiments which we have seen on the roads, in the streets, because ultimately politicians are also answerable to their people. I think now also the government, now the answer to your question, to quicken the GST, to fasten it, the answer is with the government. If the government can somehow miraculously do quicker, faster printing of notes, have it circulated, have it distributed, then I think we can have a quick GST also, and we should have it, because message must be sent loud across to the world that yes, we are there in for reforms. Because earlier also, if you look back at our history, since 1950s we have done many sorts of reforms, but the world, what they ask is implementation of reforms, pace of reforms. So I think what I have been trying to say till now in the show is, and what I am very frankly say, we have to communicate the world the pace of reforms. Of course, a fast pace would have some side effects, but I can tell you with surety, I have all the calculations done, anybody can sit with me anytime. The benefit of reforms would definitely outdo the side effects and negativities of the reforms, and we'll be a much stronger, better nation, because China is already behind. China is already not progressing the way it should have been. US also, I have doubts about the progress, the way the masters there are thinking. Europe, we all know the story. So what I am going to say is that we have a great opportunity to get international money. So we must go ahead with both the reforms quickly, so that we can have the biggest pie of international money. And that is what the globalized world means.
Absolutely. Okay, we have approximately a minute left on the show, and Sharad, the closing comments by you. The government so far, as per the opposition, has not been able to justify some tangible effects or benefits of demonetization, and with the GST rollout being delayed, what kind of a financial soup are we predicting for the economy, for the GDP? 200 basis points is something that the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has predicted. What is your prediction?
My prediction is probably 100 basis points or maybe a less for the next 2 quarters, but the economy is going to spring back, Vineet. It's I think it's a temporary thing. It's not going to last for too long. Once the currency supply, see the presses are printing about 300 notes a month. The requirement is from 2100 notes to 2400 notes. Once the currency supply comes in the next few months, the economy, see, there's nothing wrong, as Mr. Jindal said, and I support as well, that
okay, so everything is hunky dory, you mean?
Everything is yes, obviously it is totally fine, just that the liquidity comes back to the economy,
and the opposition is crying wolf.
But my closing comment, Vineet, would be that this step should be followed up with some strong fiscal steps, because if instead of the old currency notes, the red and green, we have the pink and grey. It was just not about the color.
It's just not about the color.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I mean. The government has to take some firm steps to close all the loopholes for manufacturing of black money.
All right. That was well articulated, Sharad Kohli. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Akash Jindal and Mr. Uttam Prakash Agarwal, thank you for being here. Mohammad Khan and Gopal Krishnan Agarwal, thank you so much for joining us. That is all we have on current issues. We'll see you tomorrow. Keep watching News World India. Thank you.